Today, I'll be upgrading LEGO's Sonic the Hedgehog and Metal Sonic minifigure, taking them from their base form to their super form, and all the way to something, frankly, truly terrifying. Let's get started. LEGO just released 3 new sets: Sonic's Campfire Clash, Super Shadow vs. BioLizard, and Cyclone vs. Metal Sonic. Cracking them open, we only care about one thing. Say it with me: new minifigures! These sets introduce a new variant of Sonic and Tails, Super Shadow, and Metal Sonic. I'd give 4 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and 6 out of 10 to each of them. Don't worry though, we'll be taking the low rankers to the next level. Firstly, Sonic is known for his speed. In most of the games, after gathering up enough speed, you'll see some variation of this animation. Let's build it in LEGO. I grabbed some cheese slopes, plates, and jumper plates of various colors to match the design of his shoes. I'll replace the minifigure's legs, and boom, this is the result. I'm not a huge fan of the angry Sonic expression, but with this upgrade, he's revving up to kick some robo butt. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. Love the Metal Sonic minifigure or hate him, this character would have been better in brick-built form. So, I'll design one. The only thing I'll be keeping is his head. I'm using a T-bar and wrench pieces to get some posability. The inspiration for this design came in 2 forms. The first is the LEGO Dimensions version of Metal Sonic, which has a torso that more aligns with maybe a droid from Star Wars. And the second one is from my Discord server. A user by the name of Dara D Drops shared this design, so shout out to her. Okay, back to Metal Sonic. The body is held together by a modified 1x1 brick, and I'm using 2x2 blue dishes to round out the design. The arms connect to a 3-stud long bar, and finally I'll place a hollowed out yellow stud to represent his chest. I'm very pleased with how this Metalman has turned out. Your algorithm quest for today is letting me know which you prefer in the comments section, LEGO's or mine. Also, 3 of the Sonic-themed robos that I build in this video are available on my Rebrickable page completely for free, so check it out in the description. I feel like it's been a hot minute since I designed a blue and true Sonic game mock, so let's build something to display these 2 guys in. I opted for Stardust Speedway from Sonic CD. Here's the base I'll be using. I tiled it off, but I'm leaving a few exposed studs. First, I'll use some Brickhead's bricks to support the lavender columns. The technique of the day is very illegal, but if you take a large plate, you can wedge more plates in the space between the studs. I'm using it to get some extra texture because I'm limited on what pieces I can use, because lavender is not a very common color. I'm using dark gray bars and more lavender bricks to finish off the first column, and then I'll simply copy and paste the second one. Now we need a path for our rivals to run on, and I'm doing something interesting this time. I'm using a prison bar brick to allow me to build on more angles. All it takes is some clip elements and you have yourself some cool looking texturing. I also tiled off the top, alternating between red and yellow 1x4 tiles. And then I added a spike trap for metal to crash through. And I found this neat lavender element from a dream set. I'm using them to get a bit more of verticality. After adding the 2 rivals, we're done with the build. This has grown into an iconic showdown between 2 legendary characters. Sonic CD is one of my favorite Blue Blur games, so it was a pleasure to finally get around to it. Plus, you guys have been begging for it, so I had to throw y'all a bone. Anyway, let's move on. The largest new set, Super Shadow vs. BioLizard, came with a Super Sonic minifigure too. This got me thinking about a way to display him with the Chaos Emeralds, and here's my solution. I'm taking transparent headlight bricks, hollowed studs, and angled bars to create a circular shape. On the exposed studs, I'll place each of the 7 Chaos Emeralds and attach Super Sonic to the base. This build is super easy to construct, but it works as a great display piece.
Too easy!
You could even swap out Super Sonic for Super Shadow if you wanted.
I'm the coolest!
Alright, we've designed a brick-built Metal Sonic, but over the years, Sega has created many Sonic-themed robots, including a robot that is Sonic. Before Metal Sonic appeared in Sonic CD, we had Mecha Sonic, a much bulkier, less stylish prototype. His first appearance was Sonic the Hedgehog 2, so let's build him next. To help replicate Sonic's speed, Eggman gave this guy rocket wheels on the back of his feet. To get that across, I'm using black 1x1 round tiles. Whenever he rockets across the screen, he bends his knees like an anime character or something, and I'm using hinge pieces to recreate that. I added a simple body and arms with this claw accessory. The hardest part was the head. Modified bricks came in clutch though. I stacked them on a jumper plate and used this 2x2 rounded plate to cover up the exposed areas. I'm using slopes to represent the quills and a 1x1 pizza slice tile for the beady red eye that he has. I'm not 100% satisfied with how this one turned out, but he's designed to be ugly, so I'll let it pass. He's a prototype for what's to come, so let's move on to Eggman's second attempt at a Mecha Sonic. After Sonic beat Mecha Sonic to a pulp, but I guess Eggman was pretty peeved off because soon he created a new and improved version. This is Mecha Sonic Mark II, first appearing in Sonic and Knuckles. Well, technically Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which was combined with Sonic and Knuckles to form one game, forming Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, but most people just call it Sonic and Knuckles. It's weird, just bear with me. He also recently appeared in Scrapnik Island, an IDW comic saga that I personally really enjoyed. I'm using a modified brick with 2 extra studs to build up the legs, adding gray and red tiles to make this guy feel more tanky. To connect it to the body, I'm using clip pieces in addition to the nipple stud. That's not what it's called, I just enjoy calling it that. The torso uses bracket pieces to add the orange portion of his chest, and I'm using the same element for his shoulders as I did for the first Mecha Sonic. For the arms, I combined wrench elements and more nipple studs. Finally, the head. Again, this was the hardest part of the build, but I managed to get a pretty solid interpretation using dark blue slopes. Now we need a place to display Mecha Sonic Mark II. I struggled to decide which portion of the level to build, but ultimately went with this section because it felt more interesting and it includes a cool reference to the first boss fight in Sonic the Hedgehog history. Here's the base I'll be using. First, I'll take modified tan plates and bricks to create some texture on the base. In the reference material, you can see tons of moss and plant life overtaking the temple, so I grabbed leaf and stem pieces. One of LEGO's recent plant pieces is this right here. They're great for adding some pop to your builds. For this mock, I'll be using the nipple stud to place them upside down to give the idea they're growing downwards. I used a normal stud to cover up the exposed area and repeated this process until I was satisfied with the result. Here's what we have now. I left some exposed studs on the back to add 2 platforms for our duo to jump on, and I also have to add the Eggmobile. My design is based off the one in LEGO's idea set, but I modified the sides to make it more accurate to its appearance in this game. The Wrecking Ball is built by taking some modified studs and surrounding them with 4x4 plates. And then I covered the plates with dark tan and brown tiles and 1x1 plates. Now we can connect it to the Eggmobile, and we have to add Sonic and Tails. We're almost done, but Sky Sanctuary is, as the name implies, in the sky. To emphasize this, I'll add a few small cloud builds. And now we're done. I'm really pleased with how this one turned out. I feel like it balances the retro graphics of the reference material and includes enough details to make the mock really pop out. Plus, working with LEGO Plants pieces is always really fun. Before we get to the ultimate form of Metal Sonic, aka Metal Overlord, I'm going to be taking a trip down internet lane to learn about Shin Sonic. I have seen plenty of memes about this guy, and a few other LEGO YouTubers have recreated him in plastic, but I know next to nothing about him. A quick Google search tells me that he was created by Evenimus? Is that how you say it? Evenimus? I think that's how you say it. And it represents an incomplete version of Sonic. His only goal is to keep eating and keep growing larger and more powerful. This character is popular among, how do I say this, brain-rotted kids content? When I say brain rot, I'm thinking of content farms created by large companies, not your average guy who makes YouTube videos and lives with his parents. That aside, let's build the second form of Shin Sonic, the tall, skinny guy. I built Sonic's iconic red and white shoes, but gave them a more clown shoe vibe. They're longer, and the joints are built using wrenches and modified 1x1 bricks. For the body, to get across the exposed rib cage, I used blue slopes and tiles. The head is built using slopes and various angled bricks to recreate Sonic's quills. As for the mouth, arguably the most iconic part of Shin Sonic, I've built a wide jaw that's surrounded with tan bricks to represent his stretched lips. I'm using red plates for his gums and 1x1 rounded tiles for his teeth. I built 2 nearly identical sets of teeth and attached it to the head. This guy looks weird. I'm a big Sonic fan, so I felt responsible to try my hand at recreating Shin Sonic, but this is so weird, in the funniest way possible. The internet works in mysterious ways, and the march of what's trendy will continue without me. Now for the final build of the video, Metal Overlord. His design has subtle changes every time he appears, his most recent outing being Shadow Generations. Not unlike the Egg Dragoon, either Sega is constantly improving their own designs or they forget to play their own games. Enough stalling, let's get started. I took the curved yellow elements from LEGO's Cyclone for the body and placed rounded segments on either side. The wings were the weirdest part to build. In the reference material, you can see some of the sections don't even have connection points, which made it hard to recreate it in LEGO, but I'm opting for using a single bar and connecting the sections using clip plates. You remember how earlier in this video I said having to use lavender made it tricky to build the Sonic CD mock? That applies here, but for dark purple. Thankfully, Bowser's car came with these rounded purple elements, which I used to recreate this section right here. All of the segments of the wings come together using an axle beam, which makes it relatively sturdy. as sturdy as it can be, honestly. For the tentacles, I'm using these wheel elements, but I've taken off the rubber portion. By stringing them along with this bar element, I can create 4 nearly identical tentacles and have some flexibility due to the nature of the bar piece. I think the arms were the funnest part to design because of their lack of purple. Blue, gray, and black are way easier to work with. The metal Overlord has these spikes protruding from his body. To represent these, I'm using the modified plates from the Daily Bugle. Finally, the head, which was tough to design, but I'm happy with the results, even if he kind of looks like a dog if you squint your eyes. Metal Overlord is not a dog. In Shadow Generations, you must face this guy again as you surf through water. The graphics and sound design for this level are incredible, even if how you deal damage to him is kinda lackluster. I grabbed a base, tiled it off with cheese slopes and translucent blue tiles. I left some space for rocks and debris for Shadow to smack, sending it up to Metal Overlord. Speaking of, we need to add Shadow. I designed a brick-built Doom Surf for Shadow to cruise on, and added them both to the build. And that completes this mod. Jeez, this guy is intimidating. It's no wonder it's considered the coolest version of Metal Sonic. That, on top of Shadow Generations being one of the best recent Sonic games, we have a banger mock on our hands. And let me know which of today's builds is your favorite in the comments section. After updating the list, I've built over 20 Sonic the Hedgehog video games, but there's still so many more to go. Be sure to subscribe so you can see what I build next. As always, thanks for watching and keep on inspiring.